and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on. I'm awash with this stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavour show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of...
Welcome, everyone, to a deep dive that takes us, well, right into the heart of summer in Ambridge. A cricket match, specifically. We've got some really interesting material today. It's excerpts from an audio drama, and they give us this fantastic glimpse into everyday life, you know, how small things, little medical issues or bigger problems at work can just pop up.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, I think, is how these different threads, the cricket game, Clary's job, how they sort of weave together. You start to see the characters, the conflicts. It's all about facing tough spots, really. Our job here is to pull out the key insights, the nuggets of knowledge from it all.
Exactly. So maybe grab a cup of tea or perhaps a cheese sandwich like Henry, because we're about to unpack some quite surprising moments, both factual and, well, deeply human, from the village green. And the school canteen, too. Okay, let's start where the sources do, with that classic British summer scene, the cricket match. You can almost smell the cut grass, can't you? Players in white, Henry's doing okay as the last man in. Yeah, sounds pretty peaceful.
It does, yeah, on the surface. But even there, in that quiet setting, things start to bubble up. What was the first little ripple, do you think?
Well, the first thing is Brad, isn't it? Suddenly he's got itchy eyes, sneezing, a runny nose, claims he's never had hay fever. And Usha makes that great point, you know, about allergies just appearing at any age. It shows how even our own bodies can throw us a curveball.
That's a really good point. It underlines that unpredictability, doesn't it, health-wise? We sort of assume we're immune if we haven't had something before, but nope. Brad's experience shows you can suddenly need to adapt to something completely new.
But the real drama, the real tension, it shifts pretty quickly to the scoring, doesn't it, with Clary? She gets incredibly wound up, totally convinced Henry, the math genius, she calls him, missed a 4.
Right, she's adamant the score is 198, not 194.
Yeah, and you can tell she's already agitated because Kenton's having a rough time. He's not himself. That definitely seems to be feeding into it.
It does seem linked, yeah. Her stress about Kenton may be magnifying her certainty about the score.
And then it properly kicks off. Tracy, Henry's mom, she's described as being on the warpath, desperate for the win, ready to challenge Henry's maths.
Wow, okay. So the pressure's really on Henry.
Totally. And the specific issue is a second 4, supposedly hit by Will. Clary swears she saw it, even though she'd popped out for a second to blow her nose. What does that tell you about sort of perception under pressure?
Well, it screams confirmation bias almost. She believes she saw it, perhaps because she wants the score to be higher, or because her focus was momentarily elsewhere, and her memory filled the gap with what she expected or hoped for. Plus her emotional state about Kenton, it all fuels that conviction.
So poor Henry stuck right in the middle, his mum piling on the pressure, Clary absolutely certain. But the resolution, it's actually quite straightforward in the end.
How does it get sorted?
Henry just compares notes with Terrence, the scorer for Greenbury, the other team. You know, the guy who's been scoring since he was in short trousers.
Ah, the voice of experience.
Exactly. And it turns out Terrence had made a mistake initially, but he spotted it himself and corrected it straight away. So the score was 198 after all.
Ah, okay. So Clary was right about the number, but wrong about Henry making the mistake.
Precisely. Sadly, 198 still wasn't enough for a win. But it's fascinating, isn't it? How a simple, objective check by a neutral party just diffuses the whole thing.
It really is. It shows that direct communication and just, well, checking the facts can cut through all that emotional tension. And it also shows Terrence's integrity, right? Experienced guy, makes a mistake, owns it, fixes it, no drama.
And there's that little side note, too. Terrence is the one who helps Brad with his hay fever. Gives him an antihistamine he always carries, solutions from unexpected places.
Exactly. So while the cricket drama simmers down, there's this whole other narrative unfolding around Clary, isn't there? Her job at the school canteen.
Yes, and we learn pretty fast it's not just cooking. She's supervising kids too, and she finds it pretty full-on challenging.
Which raises that interesting question, you know? How do people cope when they're put in a situation that challenges their sense of competence? Especially when it involves maybe different generational attitudes or behaviors.
I think that's key here.
Yeah.
Because Clary shares this really upsetting story. She told some year 10s and 11s to sit down. Canteen was packed and they just gave a little cheek, called her names. all sorts.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah. And Henry saw it all, but didn't step in. He explains later, if he had, they'd have just turned on both of them.
Understandable, unfortunately. So how did Clary react in that moment?
She just froze, felt totally embarrassing, and immediately thought, I'm not cut out for this. She just can't believe kids would act like that.
Right.
She says, she's seen plenty from her own boys, even down to little Poppy, but this generation, they've got an answer for everything.
You can really feel her sense of helplessness there, can't you? That feeling of being disrespected, having your authority just dismissed. It clearly hits her hard, right at her self-worth. It's a common struggle, I think, when the usual ways of interacting just don't seem to work anymore.
It is. But then Henry, despite being young, gives her some incredibly solid advice. He tells her, quite bluntly, show no fear, report them straight to Mr. Dixon.
Mr. Dixon, the one everyone's scared of.
That's the one. Henry's point is, show me you mean business. Use the system.
Makes sense. But Clary's worried, right? That they'll just hate me more.
Yeah, that's her fear. But Henry's response is brilliant, I think. He says, they hate school, not you personally. And then the crucial line, if you just stand there and take it, then they'll just reckon you're spineless.
Wow. That's quite direct from Henry.
It is. And then he gives her that amazing analogy. He says, because you're Clary. At Bridge Farm, we all know that Clary is never a passenger. You're the driver.
Ugh, the driver analogy. That's powerful. So his advice isn't just be tough. It's about strategy, isn't it? Use the official channels, project authority, even if you don't feel it inside. Take control of the situation rather than letting it control you. It's about shifting from being reactive and overwhelmed to being proactive.
Exactly. So when we put these two stories side by side, the cricket dispute and a canteen confrontation, what are the main threads we can pull out?
Well, both really highlight how life throws unexpected challenges at us, doesn't it? Whether it's a sudden physical thing like an allergy or a social challenge like dealing with, quite aggressive disrespect.
Yeah, and in both cases, the initial response involves some level of confusion or feeling overwhelmed. Brad with his symptoms, Clary feeling she's not cut out for it.
But both also show pathways to resolution. For the scoring dispute, it was external verification, factual checking, simple communication. For Clary's situation, the advice points towards internal fortitude, show no fear, combined with using external structures like reporting to Mr. Dixon, asserting agency.
That journey for Clary, from feeling totally helpless to being encouraged to see herself as the driver, that's a really potent message, I think. It reminds you that even when things feel daunting, you often have more power, more agency than you initially believe.
Absolutely. It's about finding the right tool for the job. Sometimes it's about objective facts. Sometimes it's about projecting confidence and using the system available to you. Adaptability is key.
So this deep dive really shows us those subtle complexities in how people interact, how misunderstandings arise, and how crucial both sort of external checks and internal strengths can be.
Facing up to things, basically. Whether it's a wrong score or a difficult teenager.
It definitely leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? That quadrant of what happens when our past experiences, our usual ways of coping, just don't seem to fit the challenges we're facing right now. How do we actually adapt? How do we find that inner driver to navigate through it?
Yeah, how do you recalibrate when the ground rules seem to change? Definitely something to mull over until our next deep dive.
So, what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just
And,
moving mics around.
So, what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the archers. Any
Are you what we
movements
call Foley then?
and- kind of. Yep.
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
Yep. That's the ball bar. That's,
This one.
yep. That's.
Hayley so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. It's due in 2 months. Not much chance of that now. No. I mean, it would have been a stretch for them financially, mind, but I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them, Caroline.
I think The Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community at whatever